Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here on time. Thank you, and thank you for those of us that were really early. Thank you for waiting. So as you can see, we are here all connected with friends from different parts of the world. And I'm pretty sure you're wondering, what are those tools to improve human performance? What can we do so people can perform better? And we have experts from all over the world with us today. And I'm going to start with you, Ray. I would love for you to present yourself. Tell us more about you, where you are at, and what you have to say for us today. So please, Ray.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ray. I'm from Indonesia. So I'm currently the operation director of MDI, which is a training provider company that has been here in Indonesia for about 26 years. And today I will be sharing about how can we use empathy to create a high-performing organization. So happy to share and looking forward to kind of interact with you soon.
Thank you very much, Ray. Thank you. Dick, we would love to hear about you.
Hi, my name is Dick, and to those in the morning, good morning. For those my time zone in Singapore, good evening, and in Europe, good day, I guess. Yeah, my name is Dick, and I'm actually on running my own consulting company, basically in leadership development. So I work with middle to higher level of leaders, working with them to achieve new heights, helping them develop themselves, giving them the opportunity to be able to grow within the organization or out of the organization. So today I will be talking some tools for you. Back to you, Vicky.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dick. And Bernard?
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Bernhard Münch from Germany. I'm the founder and CEO of MAC. We are a consultancy focusing on organizational development questions. And if you look at organizational development, it's looking at the company, looking at teams, and looking at individuals. That's the three levels that we are addressing. And we work primarily with big companies, sometimes with smaller in the telco business and automotive, insurance. This is basically what we are covering. There is some passion about, next to the passion for my family, for my two kids and my company, there is a passion in, when you look at leadership, what is the right balance to drive performance between result-driven leaders and people-driven leaders? So, and to find the right balance between that, that's probably the clue of leadership at the end of the day. And I will speak today a little bit about real-time feedback, a different approach to feedback, and very much connected to high-performing at the end of the day.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Bernard. And, it's very interesting to know, the multicultural aspects of, human performance. So this is why we're doing this panel today. And of course, I'm Victoria Holtz. I'm from Mexico, but I work in all Latin America. We have this in Colombia, Argentina, Peru, and Brazil. And we work together, actually, all of us together in many global projects. To, before the pandemic, of course, everything was in person, and we would, work with teams in each of our countries, and we would do, for example, global projects where we are all working with the same company at a global level. In this time, of course, now we are all connected, like we're now, across all time zones, working together by Zoom. So you can also have the global experience right in front of your computer at home. So this is fantastic. And thank you everyone that has joined. Please feel free to write questions in the chat. Let us know what you're thinking, because we would love to hear from you. And if we are thinking about human performance improvement, I would like to start with you, Dick. In talent management, what tools do the consultants use to assess and identify the strengths and also the development areas of high performance individuals? Can you tell us more about that?
Sure, Vicky, I'll be most happy. Let me share a screen first, because what I'm going to share with you today is assessment centers. And assessment centers are used very much in talent management in many ways. One way is in search of new recruits. For example, if an organization were to look for a new, say, a CEOs, for example, and they use assessment centers to look for these people, or they have people whom they would like to consider within an organization for promotion to say a CEO or to a country manager. I had an experience where I worked with a multinational company where they had a vacancy in Thailand, actually, for a GM country manager in Thailand. So within the organization, they had many people who applied for it, but they need to know the right guy. They need to know the guy that can fit the job in Thailand. So they put 2 or 3 people down to assessment centers to understand who has the best fit for that position, as well as the job role. So and today I thought maybe I'll share with you what is assessment centers and how it's been done, what do they measure and things like that. Let me show a couple of slides here. Let me see here. Oh, one second. I think I have to go back. Okay. Do you all see the screen? Good? Yeah, okay. So in the talent management world, assessment center is very common in the acronym of ACs. If you talk to the talent management people, they will not use the word assessment center really, but they use ACs. Now, what are basically assessment centers? So to most people, they may not know what assessment centers are, but it seems that it's a set. Can you hear me? I seems to have, do you hear me okay? All right. The word assessment centers means a place where you assess something. And typically, an assessment center is not like this. Assessment center is it's a series of exercises used to test skills or test behaviors which are not accessible by interview. Now, to an interview, there are who are very good at attending interviews, but personality and behaviors are exposed so easily. So this is where the assessment centers comes in. Now, it typically is held all day from, say, typically office hours, 9 to 5, typically is over a day. And candidates are only invited to attend at assessment centers only if they complete, say, some initial screening, like aptitude tests or some interviews or something like that. So this is like stage 2 towards the interview, you know. Now, assessment centers are what we call, it's not a place, it can be held in the client's office, it can be held in the assessor's office, or it can be held in
We're losing you a little bit.
Whether, yes, Vicky, can you hear me?
Yeah, we're losing you a little bit.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm speaking too fast, like all Singaporean.
No, please go ahead.
Okay, so during an assessment center, you will get a brief before you attend assessment center for the day. You get a briefing of what is to be expected. So you get a brief like, what is the job like, what you need to do, and you get a brief of the simulated organization, right? So the first thing that I will talk about is what do they do during the assessment itself. So we have this in-basket simulation. It's like an email thing, where emails will come to you, and then they will give you a scenario, and you have to then you will test your ability to adapt to various situations in a working office. So it will come in, and then they expect you to make a decision, how long you take to do that, and how are you going to do it. Okay, so it will be like a flow of emails simulated. Then we have case studies, but these case studies are very especially particular positions. So, maybe the scenarios are neutral. So if you have more than one candidate attending the same assessment center for the same job, the scenarios are the same to give a level playing ground, so that they have experience to share while doing the case. So during the case scenarios presented, they will have to go through it, and it typically takes an hour or so for them to study the case and to present what they propose from the scenarios. Yeah, and it also sometimes includes some psychometric tests. And as you know, multinational company likes to do this, and I have done Hogan assessments. I've experienced with OPQ as well, and I also have experience with MRG. So these are typical psychometric tools that they use in conjunction with assessment centers. Now, these psychometric tools also measures like personality, what personality the guy has, what is his attitude to work, his team play, his emotional control, organization skill, time management, things like that. During the assessment center time, there would be role plays to simulate the situation. So role plays can come in many ways. So like in the case studies, the role play can be presented. Yeah, and during role plays, they have to suggest also. The assessors will watch the behaviors of the high performance individuals. There is also interviews conducted. So the assessors will also interview the candidates. At the end of the day, after all this stringent process, usually there is a business plan presentation, because in any job, presentation skill is one is very key. So the candidate would usually have to present what he thought would be best for the organization to move forward. So that's how the assessors assess the candidate as well. Now, from the assessment centers, there will be a report, and the report will come out from input from all the exercises, all the case studies, psychometric assessment, observation of behaviors. Now, when the candidate is replying, how quick he replies the email, in role play, what was his behavior like? Was he angry? Was he very impatient? Things like that. So the overall performance is presented during this development report. It's not a right or wrong answer thing. It's just ways of people reacting to different situations differently. Yeah. At the end of it, usually the assessors will come out and present the strength of the candidate and also development areas can of view. Usually intervention like coaching will come in. Yeah, coaching, because these are very, very senior people. Yeah. Okay. I have another slides I've prepared, but I thought I'd just share it with you. How valid are assessment centers? if you compare to traditional interview, it's like 0.05 over number one, perfect one as a perfect prediction. So to predict something to be perfection, which is always not possible, traditional interview will score something like 0.05 to 0.19. But behavioral interview can score somewhere around 0.4 to 0.6. Personality test is like 0.39, and assessment test is a bit higher, not so high, but highest at about 0.66. Now this is taken from the British Psychological Society. So that gives you an idea how assessment centers are valid. The validity of the assessment that are very high compared to the rest of the other tests. All right. Okay, Vicky, that's all I have here.
No, this is fabulous.
Over
Thank
to
you
you,
very much. So thank you very much, Dick. I think you have given us a very broad and very interesting way in why do we need to know where people are? Because, you know, to improve human performance, the first thing you need to know is where we are starting. What is the starting point? So this has been very clear, and I really appreciate, Dick, that you have been telling us about what are the assessment centers? What would we need to know first? What is the starting place? And from there, then we go into improvement. So
Yes.
thank you very much for sharing that. Can you tell us a little bit more about the development report?
Basically, the development report is after the assessment center has been done, the assessors will take typically at least a day or two to go through all the behaviors that they have identified. For example, I say presentation skill, for example, then what are critical areas of the presentation? Did they cover the right point? Did they miss a point? Things like that. So basically, it sees how a potential candidate, how they would fit into an environment of a particular function, you know. So this assessment centers is not really a cure for everything, but it's just to identify whether a person can fit, and if it doesn't fit totally, what intervention needs to be done to help him to grow, to fit into the job. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fabulous. Thank you very much, Dick. And you know, it's interesting, at least in my culture, you know, in the Latin culture, sometimes when you're talking about assessment, people get a little bit worried. They think, well, they're going to measure me. You know, it's a little bit difficult for some people. And I think it's also very important at that moment to explain to them what we want to do, that this is for their development. The idea is always in a positive way, and have a lot of empathy with what they're going through, you know, through the whole process. And talking about empathy, Ray, I want to ask you, what do you think is the role of empathy in developing these high performance individuals?
Well, thank you, Vicky, for the question. I think it's a very interesting question, and it is very relevant these days. In a very complex and performance-oriented world that we live in, where people mostly talking about performance, targets, it sometimes forget to kind of use empathy in our performance, in our work life. People often think that empathy is something that is really soft, really something that is not very business-like. It's something that you bring in the family. But our study and our experience in Indonesia and also in other Southeast Asian countries suggests that empathy play a very significant role in developing high-performing individuals. Our recent engagement with one of the largest automotive companies in Indonesia, and then we kind of see what caused a significant improvement compared to the previous years. And the implementation of empathy is really playing a crucial part in terms of improving the performance, Vicky.
Excellent. You know, we spoke about, you spoke about Indonesia, you're speaking about Mexico. Do you think, you know, does it play a different role in Asian culture, for example, than in other cultures?
Interesting. So let me share my slides now. This is something that I prepared. Can you see, Vicky? So a very interesting question, Vicky, that whether empathy is something that's easier to implement in Asia. Well, I mean, Asia generally, like the largest population in Asia will be China and in the world, I guess. But it's even in the Chinese words of listens, it has these components, right? I mean, the first component is ear. I mean, obviously, you listen with empathy using your ear. That's something that is very common. But another component of listening, of the word of listening in Chinese character is 10 eyes, meaning that you listen with not only your ears, but using your 10 eyes, in the sense that you are fully paying attention towards other people, not just listening with your ear, but using your eyes as well. And the next component of listening in Chinese characters are one heart, in the sense that you have this one heart, one mindset towards the person that you're talking to. And that's create the empathy. And the last bit is treating the other person like a king. So really putting a lot of respect, putting a lot of emphasis through, putting a lot of understanding. That shows a bit how empathy is ingrained in our culture, in Asian cultures. But interestingly, what we found is that implementation of empathy in Asia is facing a different kind of challenge, where the other person who we want to kind of get more information at is rather unwilling or uneager to kind of share much, because that's one of the key culture that we have in Asia, where people are keeping their thought, keeping their feeling to themselves. Probably it is because one of the things, education that we brought up with, the culture that we were raised up to, that showing your feeling is showing a weakness. So implementing empathy in Asian culture is somehow different than implementing empathy in the Western world, but it faced a different kind of challenge, Vicky.
Okay, thank you, Ray. I'm going to jump to you, Bernward, in terms of empathy, because you're talking, hey, is it different in the Western world? What about in Europe? What would you say in your culture?
I think empathy is more or less, I could agree much more to what Ray said as he said. I think if you look at our culture and relate performance to the most interesting piece of paradigm, then it is feedback. And feedback, of course, is not a new thing, it's an old thing. The correlation between the amount of feedback given and performance is quite striking. All studies show in the right direction. And if you look at the slide, you see that many people are longing for feedback, especially the younger generation. And as we say, there is no real excuse for giving no feedback to people. We know the number and the quality of feedback that is given to an individual is highly relating to the performance and the growth that they can make over the years. So, and it's the biggest factor in all of the studies for more than 10 years. However, it has been changing a little bit on how feedback is given. Many companies realize these days that the performance management system where feedback plays a role is not really working well, or the effect is not given that they want it. So twice a year, they have their feedback conversation. How was the year? What was good? What was bad? But they show no results in, let's say, performance increase. So some are changing to what we call real-time feedback. And real-time feedback is a new paradigm to the feedback concept. And just giving you the definition on the slide, it's pretty easy. It's continuous feedback given as immediately as possible. Anytime, everywhere, of course, related to personal development. What is so different, of course, is that you do not wait. You give it as soon as you can. You obey certain rules, for example, critical, not in the presence of others. If that is not possible, wait a little bit, but you give it as soon as you can do that. And you give it, that's a second part, you give it in a very caring manner. So it is quite open, it is direct, it is precise on one hand. On the other hand, it's very caring. It means everybody knows when feedback is given that you care about the person, you care about the development, and it's not an ugly, simply I throw it to you, but it's immediate. And the background is a concept that is called radical candor. I give you a slide on the book by Kim Scott. She wrote something on radical candor, and the openness that you have to show when giving feedback, and if you want to have a result, that's the main topic of what she's been writing. And I think there is an interesting slide for you that I'll show you now. It's this one. It's interesting because in the 4 squares you see on the top right, radical candor means you challenge directly, but you care personally. Whereas manipulative insincerity or obnoxious aggression or ruinous empathy, that's the other parts, obviously are different, are differently addressed. The approach is different, and radical candor comes across like whispering and personal and caring. But still, you do it directly. I give you an example. It's not a sandwich one, not starting with something good and then comes the critical one and then the good again. It's very simple. If I'll give you an example from the consulting line of business. If I had to give feedback to a presentation somebody gives and it's not good, I would say immediately, Robin, the presentation you gave me is not usable at all. There is no red thread and there are too many typos. Next time when you get under time pressure, please tell me immediately that I can divide pieces of work to others. Now people have to step in, so please do that. Very precise, very clear, but still in a way that Robin might feel I'm caring for his development, and this is definitely what is a must, can't go without it. What do we need for this? Maybe let me give one word about that. Radical candor and real-time feedback only is really possible when you have an environment of psychological safety. If people feel emotionally, psychological, more or less safe. And that is when people don't feel that they are punished or humiliated when they do something that is not correct or that may even be a mistake. Amy Edmondson, a colleague, an American colleague, described that quite well. And I've prepared a little bit of a slide where you can see what is psychological safety in our perspective. When people are asking questions, sometimes we have in mind they do not know, which is difficult for having a psychological safety environment. What would be really well is that we feel those people who raise questions want to learn. So it's a different perspective of the questioning. Another one is asking for help. No, it's not they're incompetent, but it's they work on their competence. Or they experiment, it's not they're insecure, they don't know, but they are creative. Or last one, people are looking for and offering feedback. It's not that they're causing bad mood. However, what they do is they want to develop and grow. So, and if you act more in this mindset and perspective, this is one way creating for yourself as leader an emotional safe environment. And on the basis of that, real-time feedback can grow and flourish and people may develop. The experience we have here in Germany and in Europe is super, super striking, super, super interesting. It is accepted quite well. And especially the younger generation is longing for that. And also leaders start to rethink their attitude on feedback. Not waiting, not causing trouble a month later, but being precise, immediately care about, but look for the environment that is psychological safe. Maybe that's an input. And coming back to my first sentence, why? Because feedback is the most driver number one for performance.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Bernard. I completely agree. Feedback is so important for performance. And also know that companies now, they do sometimes these performance reviews, every 6 months, every year. You have to wait a year to know what's going on. That's horrible. So I really like what you're saying about real-time feedback. You don't have to wait for the one-on-one, for the scheduled session. Just tell the person what you're thinking at the moment. And, JC is asking, what about feed forward? It's not only about feedback, what you did, but feed forward, what I'm expecting about you, what I would like for you to do in the future. And again, I really like, Bernard, what you said, you have to do it with empathy. You have to be there. It is not only, the straightforward. Sometimes when we think about Europe, at least in Latin America, and I think in Asia as well, we're thinking, it's very straightforward, very direct. We are more like, I would like for you, and would you be so kind, to make it in a way that people feel comfortable receiving that feedback. I want to go back to you, Ray, because you were talking about empathy in this way. What is the correlation between empathy and emotional intelligence? And do you need emotional intelligence for feedback, for empathy, for everything we've been discussing?
Yeah, I think Bernard make a very interesting point where real-time feedback is very crucial in terms of improving performance in individual or organization. And with that, it also plays along, it's also the requirement of both of the feedback receiver and also the feedback giver to have emotional intelligence, right? And for those of you who follow the work of Daniel Goleman with his emotional intelligence, social awareness is one of the key pillars in emotional intelligence, being able to recognize others' emotions, being able to kind of recognize what other people are feeling, and empathy is right in the center of that, and empathy is really playing a crucial part in making sure that people have a higher emotional intelligence, and there has been a lot of talk these days that emotional intelligence is one of the key factors in determining people's successes.
Do you know what to tell us? Are there some steps that we can follow to develop this empathy?
Well, interesting. So just let me share my slides a bit here now. Okay. So the research and the findings and the experience that we got here so far is that empathy, you can break it down into 3 parts. This is called cognitive triangle, and the first level of empathy is empathy at the level of thought. I mean, let's say I'm talking to you, Vicky, empathy at the level of thought, in the sense that we have the same thinking. I mean, we have the same things that we are thinking at. And the second level of empathy is that we have the same level of feeling on the emotional level. So we could have the same thought, but we may not have the same feeling. So that's one of the key differentiator that we found, and being able to kind of get better at empathy, you have to kind of understand the thought and also the feeling of others, but also important is that you take action towards whatever the other person is thought and feeling as well, because these 3 components really create a huge impact in terms of becoming a more empathetic person. So my tips for the people that are willing to kind of increase their empathy, especially when they're giving feedback, like Bernard was mentioning, is that thinking about the thought, thinking about the feeling the other person are feeling, and also taking a real action to kind of towards that people. In Bernard's case, it was giving the feedback or giving the input towards the other person.
Excellent, thank you. I really like what you're saying about the thoughts and the feelings, because people sometimes say, you are making me feel. No, nobody makes you feel anything. You have a thought, and those thoughts create your feelings, and those feelings create the actions, and those actions create reactions, right? You change your thoughts, you change your emotions. And it's interesting in all of this about, when people say, I'm going to receive feedback, sometimes they're a little bit worried. And they think this is might be only for some people and not for everyone. I want to ask you, Dick, and also it's related from a question from Rose from Mexico. She's asking, assessments, are they only for key people, or should they be for everyone so everyone knows what, you know, where they stand? What do you think? Only for high positions or everyone?
Technically, it should be for everyone, but because the cost of running it is not low, so therefore only, you know, lesser people would be able to enjoy that assessment. But if you ask me for development of leadership, individuals, I think it's good for everyone to go through the assessment centers because then they will get to know using the feedback, they'll get a feedback on how they perform, where the development areas are, in the real-time format like Bernard was explaining, instead of otherwise going around the bush, trying to hide the feelings, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So yeah, assessment centers are good, and the end results is really the feedback. Mm-hmm. The feedback to the person where he has done well, where he needs to develop further, and move forward from there. Yeah.
Great, absolutely, and it's so important how you deliver that feedback. No, it's the assessments are important, but how you deliver that feedback. Going back to you, Bernard, talking about real-time feedback, what is your experience in terms of how people receive that feedback?
Yeah. If you look at, we have the feedback giver and we have the feedback receiver. And when we look at the experience in our customer group, as I said, in the beginning, we thought that might be difficult because it's so open, it's so radical open, and maybe people are shy giving it, or maybe it's difficult to accept. More or less, just the opposite happened. On the receiver side, so people, when it's done properly, with a caring mentality and empathy, like Ray was explaining, then it is super well accepted, because it's perceived, especially as I said, in the young generation, that makes me grow. People would rather be open for feedback. If they don't get it, they might be inclined, as I said, leaving the company at the end of the day, especially the high-performing ones. So we see on the receiver side, very high value in I know where I stand, I know what the expectation is, and if the expectation is clear, I can perform according to the expectation. That's not too bad a situation in an organization, in the corporate world. The giver of feedback, they have to train a little bit more, because doing that in a caring way or in an open way might vary a little bit how I used to do it. It's a gray zone a little bit. And sometimes I would call it like if you can express a mentality, an empathetic way, making the other one feel I'm on your side, or I'm there to help you reach your goals as a staff member. Maybe if this is the connotation of my talking, then on the other hand, like I explained it in previously with Robin and the example of the presentation, when he feels I'm on his side, I'm responsible also that he might reach his goal, then it's well received. But on the giver side, they have to train it a bit, maybe, and they have to learn how to do it. But this is part of the exercises of the labs that we do with these people.
Fabulous. Ray, what is your opinion in terms of, you were talking again about the Asian culture. How does feedback work there? In what is Bernard discussing about real-time feedback? Any comments on that, on your culture, Dick and Ray?
Yeah, I think in Asian culture, the stereotypes are that Asian are less eager to give and receive feedback because of the way that we were brought up, showing, making people save faces. That's something that's the stereotype of Asian culture. But I think with the globalization, with the increase in technology, people are more accustomed to more direct feedback. Obviously, I mean, from culture to culture, you need to kind of adapt. And I really like the way that Benoit said it's you have to be really done in an appropriate way. And the appropriate way, meaning in different cultures, it may be different, but you understand the culture, you understand the other person. And I think one of the key things that's really works across cultures as well is that putting yourself as the feedback giver, that you are in the same side of the person that receiving the feedback. So creating the safe environment and also the trust within the both of the people that it's for the sake of the benefit for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Fabulous. Dick, any comments about that? Anything to add?
Yeah, I agree with Ray. You know, it's a culture. The Asian culture is don't talk back, don't comment, and be safe. But I feel that there's the people who are professionally trained, they would be able to adapt to the the real-time feedback. So they embrace feedback, because like Benoit says, if nobody tells me, I will not know where my development areas are, right? If it take 1 year to tell me, I lost 1 year. So those in the professional field would like to have it, real time. Also, I noticed that the millennials are a bit more receptive to real time than maybe people like my age. They come up with this. They want to be fast. So please tell me if I don't do it right. Tell me how I should do it proper. That kind of stuff. So depends on culture. Depends on the generation. I would say that would be able to accept. But I also see that more people are also accepting feedback. They embrace feedback more openly now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dick. What I see here is we're all talking about this opportunity we have in companies to not only deliver feedback at specific times, but deliver feedback all the time. And of course, to have a good feedback, people need to know what you're going to give them feedback about, what they need to do to excel. So if the goals are not clear, if the KPIs are not clear, if the ask is not clear, the leader also has to go a little bit before even the feedback. We have been working a lot with leaders in how to ask, how to delegate, how to empower, really empower. Because it's very easy to say, hey, you are not doing what you're supposed to do, but probably the person doesn't really know what you're expecting about me. So if you talk about a continuum, the first thing with leaders is that they understand what they want to do, that they align everybody in that culture to know this is the goal, this is where we want to go, and this is what I need from you. So sometimes, as leaders, we are not very clear about what we need and how to ask for it. So also need to work in how to ask what you need, how to be very clear, how to make it sure that everybody in the team understands their role and what they need, they have to do to excel, and also that they accept that responsibility. And then it's much easier to say, hey, do you remember that we agreed on this? So what do you think about that? Where do you stand? So this creates, of course, also not only a culture of performance improvement delivered by the leader, but of accountability, where everybody at the organization can be responsible about results. And they can, even if before you start, they can say, hey, I know I'm not doing the right thing with this project, which is really great that they start themselves telling you where they're at. But sometimes, of course, they might not see, or we might not see, that we are not doing the right thing or the amount that the leaders are hoping for. So in that sense, I want to go back to you, Bernard. How do you create this culture? How do you create an organizational culture of real-time feedback?
I think the answer was, or the code word is that psychological safety one, as I said. When you explained the cause-root effects, Vicky, for a moment, I was thinking, in very many cases, leaders, managers tend to be embarrassed if people do something wrong. Mm-hmm. But embarrassment is not a strategy. It's just an emotion that is carried negatively to somebody. Check much more, is expectation clear? And if expectation is clearer, then it's much easier for people to perform. And if you then continue, it's also easier for you to be online if they're performing good, if they're performing badly. I think sometimes I tell my coachees there is nothing that speaks against being very assertive and simultaneously very friendly and caring.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the golden way. Be very assertive and very caring, because nobody doesn't like assertiveness and nobody doesn't like caring and friendliness. Mm-hmm. And if you combine that, I'm pretty sure that people would understand you. And if this is the mentality that you carry on, that you speak with your co-leaders, this is also given in feedback sessions, vice versa. I saw somebody asking in the chat, what about feedback to leaders? The same procedures and the same paradigm is applying in this way. Even if it's not done so super intensely, and that leaders are given maybe feedback more often, more frequently. Real-time feedback is, of course, a little bit new when it comes to critical feedback. People are much better when it comes to positive feedback as real-time feedback. So if Robin has done something super well, it's easy and very accepted. In the meantime, I feel that I would say, Robin, that was super, how you squeeze that out of the content, blah, 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 whatever that is. That's easy. And we have learned over the last 10, 15 years much more to be more open and proactive in giving positive feedback. So that's the second answer to the question, Victoria. Give as much positive feedback as you can when it's deserved, when it's clear, because this by that creates an atmosphere like in a family. Imagine a family where parents would only focus on the critical things that kids do. Would you like to live in that family? Or would you like to live in a family where fathers and mothers and kids are telling each other what they're super doing well, why they respect each other, why they love each other or like each other? This is creating atmosphere also of psychological safety and an atmosphere for real-time feedback. Because in a family, I'm sure everybody knows that real-time feedback from our partners and our kids when they're grown up a little bit. And they are very precise. And they are radically candid, showing up all the time. So why do they do that? Because the atmosphere is normally psychological safe. We know, or they know, they're not sent off the house when they criticize their mother or father normally. So be very positive, but don't be afraid telling people in organizations assertively and caring what the expectation is or what is not well.
I love what you're saying, Bernward. Feedback is the only way to grow. No, we shouldn't be scared of it. It's the only way to grow and the only way to help each other grow. No, and we should have this across the organization. As Rosa, as you say, is asking, no, it's not only from the leader to their people, but it should be from everyone to everyone, no, across levels, across breaking silos. So everybody should say, hey, this is what is happening, and not have to wait or tell the boss that, hey, can you tell him? That if we create this culture of safety, that we can say what we're thinking. Now that's the best way to grow. We're talking a lot about mentoring as well, and now reverse mentoring. You know, the young ones are teaching us, what to do in companies. And I see you nodding, Ray. What do you think about that?
Well, I think we were talking about feedback, empathy, and real-time feedback. And people sometimes think that feedback is something that's been here in organization for so many years, but it's rarely practiced well in organization. And in my experience, I've seen organization where people are all in the surface level. They are feeling nice and easy. They don't have anything against them. They don't give each other feedback. I mean, on the surface level, they are doing quite well. But if we dig deeper and try to kind of ask around what other people are thinking, then the bad things starting to kind of show up in the surface. That shows how really important is feedback and empathy in creating a high-performing organization, I think.
Fabulous. Thank you, Ray. What do you think, Dick? I also saw you saying yes.
Yeah, I agree with my colleague there, but one thing I want to add on is that this culture of feedback, it must start from the top. You know, it's you must have that culture. So when the top guy walks the talk and says, you know, he practiced real-time feedback, good feedback, you know, positive feedback for an advancement, for achieving your goals. I think by showing that, then the rest of the people would kind of join and participate, and it's going to be, influence the others lower one, because the ones at the bottom would probably find it a bit difficult to give feedback if the boss doesn't take feedback at all, like one of the questions asked by one of the participants. Now, if the boss exercise that, oh, I take feedback very well, then everybody starts to, give nice feedbacks, positive feedback for them to move forward. I think the culture is important. Yeah.
I really like what you say. You know, if you as a leader are also taking feedback correctly, you are teaching the others. You are the example to follow. But if someone gives you feedback and you react in an aggressive, in a bad way, or a reaction, or you kill the messenger, then you are, again, letting them know that feedback is not accepted, or is something that I only expect to, give you, but you're not expected to tell me. So I believe there the leaders have a lot to do in terms of feedback, in terms of empathy, in terms of mentoring, in terms of emotional intelligence, everything that we have discussed today. And because we have a few minutes left, I know we have a lot of questions, and hopefully we will, get back to some of them. But I wouldn't want, people to leave without the best gift we can give them. So I would like to ask you, what would be the best advice you can give, to the people that are in the audience right now in terms of performance improvement? And I will start with you, Bernard. What would be your best advice?
Maybe I can give some sort of three pieces. Number one would be, as I said, check for leaders, check what state of mind, what mindset do you have when it comes to people, as I showed on the slide. If you see people trying to experiment because they do not know, what is your perception? So check yourself, be reflective. Are you a person who is more constantly finding the positive things out of that instead of having a critical, negative mindset on what they are doing? That's number one. So be reflected as a leader if you create that psychological safe environment. That's number one. Number two is, that's for everybody, be reflected and take feedback as a development plan. So don't get out of that criticism environment when it comes to feedback. Each time you get feedback, say, super, I saved 500 US for a coaching session with a person. So that's super. And then decide what is relevant, what is not, and how can you manage that. So take it as a reflective development plan for you. And also for everybody, don't be shy. Give it a chance, give it a try. You get better each time you give feedback. And you get better each time you receive feedback, productive and constantly. That's how it works. So it's like playing tennis. You have to practice. You get better with practicing. Give and receive, and within 2 or 3 weeks or months, you will be a different feedback giver and receiver.
Love that. Practice makes perfect. Absolutely. And it's something we need to practice, and see how it works in real life. So what about you, Ray? What would be your best advice?
Well, I mean, Bernard gave a very wonderful advice. I think I would add, listening towards other people is also one of the keys that people are able to increase the organization performance. I mean, in this busy and complicated worlds, there's so many noises out there, and people don't listen to each other anymore. I mean, they just want to do the job and share things. But listening is also something that I think it's very important for us to be able to increase performance. And I've shared that I've seen organizations and leaders that listen to their employees, listen to their team member really well, and they found out the key reason why the performance has not been very well, and they found a way to improve it significantly. So I think listening is one of the key issues.
It all starts with listening. I'm going back to what you showed us, how so beautiful about, you know, the way they talk about listening, you know, and with the heart in your king, and we need to be there, you know, and it all starts with listening. So now we want to listen to you, Dick. What do you think? What would be your best advice?
Well, I would probably say that never stop learning, so that all of us have lots and lots to learn. Nobody has nothing to learn, so be open and be able to receive feedback, work with people, build up the relationship. Learning has no limits. So, you know, we learn till we can't learn, till we are not around. So in a consultant area, I think we must give everybody a fair chance to learn. Give them a fair opportunity to learn. If you get a good coach, or you can move further than beyond what you can achieve. So learning is beyond. There's no limit to learning. So yeah.
I love that. Be continuous learner. And I'm pretty sure everybody here, you know, everybody in the audience is a continuous learner, because they're here at this time of the day or the night, connected, learning with us, which is fantastic. And JC is also saying, you know, in real coaching, the coach must not provide feedback. I really like what you're saying, JC, because sometimes I think we are confused. We say, I'm going to coach you, and then you give feedback. You say, oh, I'm going to mentor you, and then you're you know, delivering coaching. So sometimes leaders are a little bit confused, and it's very important that they know what they're delivering. You know, if I am delivering mentoring, you know, this means that I want to help you grow, and I'm going to give you tools, and I can be a little bit more directive. But if I am delivering feedback, it has to do with something related to your performance. And if I'm going to coach you, as you said, you know, then I will not give you the, you know, what I see. You are going to go through your own ideas, your own process to understand where you're standing. So it is really also important to know, you know, and to not confuse. I'm just talking about this really fast, but anything you would like to say in terms of mentoring, coaching, feedback, and a disaster? Because sometimes they are going to give you feedback, and it's not feedback, it's a disaster. I'm destroying you. I'm not giving you a good feedback. And also people think feedback must be negative. And as you all said, you know, feedback can also be positive. We need to speak more about what is positive in people, positive in the company. I recommend that, you know, now that we're going through difficult times, do a session with your people about positive feedback. No, you know, in this session, the only thing we can do is tell each other what we like about each other. You know, what do we admire about each other? What we, you know, we can learn from each other. And also, you know, deliver that positive, not only to your team, but also to your family, to your loved ones. You know, we are also in need of hearing what are the good things we're doing. So what would you say in terms of mentoring, feedback, coaching? Any comments from any of you?
I think, Vicky, you expressed it super clear. This is knowing what you do is the essence, and getting to know what is the difference between the three stages that you are delivering is key. And in fact, very many people, managers, leaders would be acting out of the blue, out of a autopilot, and simply doing because I think it's right. So one recommendation left would be, before you do something, reflect which role are you now properly taking care of. Are you the coach? Are you the feedback giver? Are you the mentor? It takes you 5 seconds, and if you know the difference, then at least you can address in the right channel. If you do it autopilot and maybe you are busy or stressed, then the confusion may start easily.
Thank you very much. You know, Mimi is asking, should we keep talking about positive and negative feedback? What would you say, Ray?
Well, obviously, I mean, with the real-time feedback and also the empathy and also the assessment, I mean, it's all leading to the fact that we all need to kind of keep talking about positive and negative feedback. That's how you as an individual or you as an organization can improve on. And there's nothing bad against negative feedback, and that's the foundation of you to kind of grow better. And the way that we kind of provide the feedback is another matter. The way that you communicate the feedback, that's something that needs to be addressed more carefully. But in the essence of positive and negative feedback, it's always need to be there in the organization itself.
Thank you very much. Dick, you spoke about assessments and you started the session with assessments. How can we link these assessments to empathy, to feedback, and to performance?
When I started with assessments, you know, the end report of the development report is really very much a platform for the consultant to give the feedback to the candidate. So that's where our topic about feedback comes in, real-time feedback. As long as the feedback is related to goals and nothing personal, I mean, we don't want to attack a personal person, you know, we just say that this is your goals, this is, you know, you're not achieving this, but this can be done in this way. So people would accept the feedback more openly, yeah, professionally as well. But like we all have been talking, feedback needs to be done with the right tone, with the right intent, and not personal attack. It's not, you know, in that sense, yeah. So otherwise, yeah, with assessment centers, you find the development, you pass on the feedback to the candidate, and he develops from there. So like all consultants, we want to make sure that our candidates would be able to grow from where he started. Yeah, so that he can be moving upwards to achieve his goals. Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you, Dick. So we've been talking about feedback, and we would like to ask the audience to deliver feedback to us. Please write in the chat what you thought about this session, what you got out of it, if you got any ideas out of it. And we are going to close now. Maybe I'm going to ask for one word also from the panelists. What do you take in a word, in a phrase? What do you take away from this session? And I'll start with you, Bernard, again. Are you there? Are you frozen?
On?
Sorry, one word, one phrase. What do you take away from this session?
Oh. And Dick said from.
Are we losing you? Did we lose him? Ray, I'm going to go to you. One
Sure.
word, one phrase.
I think caring is one of the phrases that I would love to kind of summarize, because when you care other people, you kind of empathize toward the other person, and you really give feedback. Sometimes we as a leader hesitate to provide feedback because we are hesitant. We don't want to make that person feel bad, but that's not the way that you show you care towards the other person.
Thank you. Dick?
What I would say is to, how should I say this? Yeah, to help, basically to help others reach organization goals and not be personal about, you know, about it. It's all about performance and about goals in the organization. So one shouldn't be personal and be, you know, take it objectively actually.
Thank you, Dick. Bernard, we lost you a little bit, so we would love to hear you again. If you have any phrase, anything to take away from this session.
Yeah, the phrase is, the coin has two parts. The one is the assertive one, and the other one is the caring, friendly one, as I said. And the phrase is, look at your job and look at both sides all of the time.
Oh, beautiful. Excellent. Well, mine would be, you know, feedback is a gift. It's a beautiful gift. Sometimes the gift is not wrapped in the most beautiful paper. So sometimes you're not really ready to take the gift, but even if it's not wrapped correctly, you really have to look at, what am I getting from this? What is the gift? What I can learn from what I'm listening to. And in this sense, thank you very much again for all the comments. We were very happy to be with you today. And of course, this is something that you can learn and your organization can learn. We will be very happy in MoveMinds all over the world, in Germany, in Singapore, and in Indonesia, to help your company transform and excel. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Vicky. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.